On 6.5, we're looking at domain and range. And when we're looking at domain, we are looking at possible inputs. Range would be possible outputs. So we're not using these words a lot today in the lesson, but just to kind of have some idea of what it is that we're going to come back to start referring to as inputs and outputs. Inputs would be our X values. I'm going to add that on here. And then outputs would be the Y values. So the first part, I think you should be able to read those graphs, especially if you watch the video on the warm-up. If you got stuck, then you kind of have some idea, and you're just being able to read a lot of the function notation that we've been using before, so nothing should be really new on those. And then same thing with part B, nothing should be really new. It should be stuff that you have done before, being able to interpret what it is they're saying. We just have some new graphs. Part C has something that's a little bit different. It might be a little bit confusing as you read through it. So if I'm looking, it says we're talking about number of barks. Earlier, you saw a situation where the total number of times the dog has barked was a function of the time in seconds after its owner tied its leash to a post and left. Less than 3 minutes after he left, the owner returned, untied the leash, and walked away with the dog. So this one here asked if it could be an input of the function. An input in this case is going to be time, because our two variables would be time and number of barks, and our independent variable would be time. So this is talking about time, and our time is in seconds. So really what we're looking at is this a possible time in 3 minutes? So we're talking less than 3 minutes, 60 seconds and a minute. So 15 would definitely work. And I just compare that with those. The highest number it can be would be 3 times 60 or 180 seconds. So this input here would not work because we are too far beyond that amount of time that we have. Question 2, I don't have a dog at home, so these I really am not 100% sure what the answer should be, because I don't know how many times a dog can bark in a certain amount of time. So this is going to be number of barks. I'm pretty sure the 15 would work. The 84.5, I don't know if a dog could bark 300 times in 3 minutes. And if you have a dog, you would definitely know. And explaining your reasoning, whatever one you said is, again, as long as you have a valid reasoning, you're good. Part D, we don't have cards because you're at home, so I can't give you cards. We're just looking for things that are possible. So I'm going to work through the first one, and then you'll be able to work through the rest of those. And then again, I'll look at the output piece. It said, decide which numbers are possible input values. Again, we're talking X values on these. So I'm saying list at least 3 for each category, or write a statement giving general numbers that would work or would not work. So we're talking about an area of a square in square centimeters is a function of its side length S in centimeters. So things that would work, we could have a square have a side length of 5. We could have a square have a side length of 10. We could have a square have a side length of 30 or even higher. Anything that's positive number is going to work. We can't have a side length of 0. That would be an impossible, because that would be nothing, or any negative number, because we can't have a side length that would have a negative length. So we're just kind of looking at some possible pieces in there. Things to look at is, would a decimal work? Does it have to be a whole number? Does it have to be an integer? Integer would include our negative numbers. So as you're looking through 2 and 3, those are things that you kind of want to look at. 3, think about temperatures too. Can it be a possible temperature? 2 has some limitations already set. So that would mean that my other impossible inputs would be beyond those number sets. When we get down here to E, now we're looking at the same functions, and we're starting to look at whether or not certain outputs would be available. So we start with a graph, and we're just kind of looking at listing off some pairs from the graph. So that's something you should easily be able to do. And then when we get down here, we're going to talk about output values. So if we are looking at our side length function, if all of our input values are going to be a number that's positive, our output values are going to have to be a positive number greater than 0. So positive number greater than 0. It can't include 0 because, again, we said that you could not have a side length of 0. And then we go through the other 2 functions. We're looking at those particular functions with the campers and writing about those numbers to see whether or not they're outputs. And then we're looking at a graph to see which ones should work. And then, again, describing what those output values would look like. And then you're uploading that into Classroom.